Right.
Cool. Hey, dude.
How are you, man? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. How's the week going?
Week's good. We're prepping to launch some big new stuff next week. So it's kind of, final week before we make some big changes and sort of all the prep work we need to do to get around that. Launching whole new site for basecamp.com, launching some big product changes, and then also I got to write up like a big announcement and a bunch of moving parts. I love this feeling of like, don't know. We've been working on this for 8 weeks, or 10 weeks, I guess at this point. Like, don't know. Let's see what's going to happen. And also, as I've said before, like it's never a big enough. It's not a big deal unless you redesign a big part of it in the 11th hour. And so we're doing that right now. Just yesterday, I just caught up with Jonas. We're changing some big onboarding stuff. We part of this new project is improving the onboarding in a significant way, and we've been working on it for a while. And I wasn't happy with it. I looked at it again 2 days ago, and I just felt like we're going through the paces of explaining things, but like it didn't feel useful or helpful. So yesterday we just had a new idea, and we're building it today and trying it tomorrow, basically. And it's like, a big, huge part of it, but we're just changing it in the last minute, and it feels better. And sometimes you need something. I've realized is, and this is, based on something we wrote a book about this way back called Getting Real, which is like, until it's real, it's very hard to evaluate how you really feel about it. And in this case, real is not just about making it, but it's about like getting ready to launch it publicly. Like this impending date, this launch date, this ship date, forces you to ask different questions and have different feelings about something because it's about to be real. And then you're like, I've been sort of punting on my opinion about it for a while, but now like this is what we be putting out, and I don't feel great about it, so we're going to tweak it, and I think it's going to be significantly better. So anyway, it's those like last minute big changes. I like that. I like that feeling. And anyway, so that's what we're working on.
I'm curious. Was there like a conscious decision? Like, was it on purpose that your packaging? Like I know some of the changes of like why you're changing Basecamp.com, and you showed off some product changes last week, and they're not necessarily like the same reason why. Is there a reason why you're kind of packaging both launches together? Was it for a bigger bang, or did it just kind of happen by chance?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a bigger bang. We're doing there's a bunch of stuff. So there's product changes, which are beginning to sort of bring our sort of usage patterns and sort of best practices and sort of golden paths like into the product. Right now, we've been hoping people figure things out for themselves, but we're just going to say, this is how we do it. This is how we set it up, and follow us, basically. So we're doing that. And that's a big change. We're also changing the business model around. We're changing our pricing around for new customers. Existing customers, no change for them at all. Everything's exact same for them in terms of pricing. Product changes, they'll get the updates, but there's no changing price. So we're doing a big product changes, big pricing changes, and we redid the site because we're speaking differently about the product now. It's like something we've known for years but haven't really talked about, which is that Basecamp is not just about running projects. It's really about running your small business. It's about communicating across the company. It's about coordinating with different teams, and it is also about running projects. And we're selling the product primarily to small business owners. That's our current customer base. Like the majority of people based on our surveying, appear to be owners, founders, CEOs, or very high C-level people inside small businesses who are making this purchasing decision. And we've never talked really directly to that group. So it's messaging, it's the way we want to present the product, it's pricing, it's all these things all together. It just felt like, let's make this a significant push, and let's not be incremental about the push. Let's make the big push so we can give it weight and we can put it out there and say we're going in this direction. And I don't know if I talked about this last show, but the metaphor I used internally was to say, like, sometimes you live in a town. Let's say you live in a small town your whole life, and you're like, I want to go move to New York. Okay, you're going from a small town to a big town. You want to move, right? You decide to make the big move to New York, and when you get there, like the intention is not like, let me try it for a week or two and see if I like it, and if I don't like it, I'll come right back home.
Right.
It's like, no, I'm going to make it work. I'm going to go to New York, and I'm going to make it work, and I'm going to give it a year. Like, I'm going to give it some time. I'm making it work. I don't know anybody there. I don't have a job. I'm going to make it work. So you go there with a different mindset, which is like, I'm going to make it work. It's not, is it going to work? And I sometimes think when you make incremental changes, it's more about like, is it going to work? You don't have the confidence in it. And then sometimes you want to make a change where you're like, I'm actually going to like airlift myself to a new place, drop there, and figure out how to survive. And so that's kind of the change we want to make with this, which is like, I want to make a bigger change, a bigger, bolder bet, different pricing, different product changes, a different messaging, different public marketing site, a variety of stuff all at once, because that makes it feel more like we're moving to a new city. We're being airdropped to a new place. And now we're going to figure out how to survive in this new place, this new way, versus making incremental small changes where I can't, like, there's just not enough of a confidence behind those tiny moves to sort of make a bet.
Sure.
Sometimes you get like a bet, I feel like needs to be bigger than smaller. So that's kind of the idea. I mean, it's more of a philosophical thing more than fact. It's just like how I feel about this particular move. So that's it.
Do you worry about like press implications of like what you do? And so you're preparing now for this big launch. I mean, do you put any time into like reaching out to, I mean, you have a cajillion press contacts. I mean, obviously you yourself write in other publications. Like, do you put any thought behind that? Like, well, I'm going to time this launch with, launching 5 articles this week in different places about it. Or does that not even enter into your mind about this stuff?
So I traditionally, will reach out sometimes to a few people I know in the press, but I don't want to do that right now with this one. I want to talk about a variety of things on our blog first, and a few different things. And I think that the stories that we can tell are going to be better that way than traditional press.
Sure.
There might be some topics that we might talk to the press about that are different, but maybe we're doing it wrong. Maybe we should have a very concerted press effort all at once. And again, there's a variety of ways to do it, but I don't want to big bang it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I want to like big bang it in another way. And then, right. I've been holding off on some posts I want to put up on SVN because I want to like talk about some of the stuff once we have the new stuff up, and then kind of see where it goes from that point. And then like, if it's successful, then I'd like to talk to the press about it.
Sure.
Like, here's a move we made. Here's a bet we made. Here's something we did that was very different. Here's why we did it. And then it's more of a story versus like, to me, launches aren't really stories.
Right.
It's just a moment in time.
Yep.
I like talking about like, this worked or this didn't, whatever, but here's why, here's what we did, and here's what happened. That's more of a story.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it, at least.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense to me. It's good. It's cool stuff coming out soon.
Yeah, I think so. So we'll see how it goes. What's up with you? What are you doing?
Just launched a bunch of stuff. There was something that we did recently. We finally have been tackling deals, and I'll show it off.
In high rise, you mean?
In high rise, yeah. We've been deals has been this area like we're a little nervous to touch, just because it's like the thing that we probably, coming on board, we might understand the least of how to use in high rise. I mean, we pummel on high rise other features like tasks and emails and storing contacts and looking up people's history and search, but deals, we don't do much with deals. And so obviously that's just I don't want to touch it unless we have like a really good understanding of how people are using it. If we touch this thing, what are going to be the consequences? And so anyway, we've been talking with a bunch of people about deals, and something that kind of keeps coming back is managing pipelines. And like I had this realization that high rise right now, the way deals are, is very much about like the past. I mean, it's very much about like I make a deal, and there's no, right now in high rise, deals have no like expected close date. And if you talk to most salespeople, they're trying to manage future. I mean, they're trying to figure out like, okay, here's the stuff that I want to happen. I want to close these many deals this month or this quarter. Next quarter, I want to do just as many or even more deals. And right now there's, native high rise, like that's not a thing. It's all like looking at like what happened in the past. Like how many deals did we close this year, this month, the last, 30 days, 60 days, 6 months. So it gives you some decent reporting of the past, but there's really no management yet of the future. And so like we started doing stuff with like trying to make high rise a little bit more flexible, because not everybody needs it. So a lot of people really like how simple deals are in high rise right now. So I didn't want to really upset that and add a ton of other fields. We brought the concept that we have in contacts of custom fields over to deals, that people can start defining things, whatever they want, expected close date, probabilities, like let deals get a lot more flexible if you decide to turn that on. And my expectation was this would kind of fit a need for people trying to do things like set expected close dates. Now you could set a date like, this date we expect to close in the next quarter. And then you could go do some reporting on that. Like the only thing is, so we added the custom fields, we added it to our API so that like other external parties could do it. But then I held off adding filters inside high rise to actually find those deals. So you could add the custom fields, but it wasn't all that useful yet because you couldn't like find your deals with those custom fields.
Yep.
So I went back, and this was like a few months ago. I started a project where I'm like, okay, I'm going to look at how we filter deals and start adding those in. And I was like, as I started adding it, I was like, okay, we have custom fields. They're really flexible. You can add, 1 to infinite amount of custom fields. I started fooling with the filter stuff and how we currently do filters. And it was just like, right now you can filter deals by, say, category. Deals have one category, you pick a category. I was going to add filters, custom fields to this. And it was like, oh my God, but you could have an infinite number of custom fields. There's no concept in our filtering system to do an infinite number of filters for a deal. And I was like, I'm going to have to throw everything away. And so it was like, this is going to be too huge of a project right now. There's a lot of other stuff going on. I'm going to have to punt on this. And so I did. I punted on it. And then, I don't know, I came back to it just because people have been asking for pipeline management and how to deal with custom fields better in deals. So I finally looked back at it, and it dawned on me that when people ask about this, they only want to filter by like one custom field, not infinite number of custom fields, even though they can add them. And it was just this disconnect in my thinking about like, well, we've given people the flexibility, but we don't necessarily need to like give them all that flexibility in their filtering abilities. Like there's a big win here, like one of those, let's do 20% of the work, get 80% of the impact by giving them like just one custom field to filter by. And the problem like just shrunk. And it was just like, holy shit, I could get this done in a few days, a week, and make people really happy without throwing away our entire filtering system. So that was, I don't know, that was a big revelation. I'll show you like what we ended up kind of coming up with.
I would also suggest, by the way, that I had a board meeting call this morning with Claire from Know Your Company.
Yeah.
And they were talking about sales. They just hired their first salesperson.
Oh yeah, cool.
Or about to. I don't know if I don't know yet, but they're about to, or they may have. Anyway, and she was talking about like, we've never really had a pipeline. We don't have any CRM really. And so I'm like, you should talk to Nate, and so you guys should chat about this specifically, because I know that she might be a really ideal customer for you guys. Small business, hiring a salesperson for the first time, lining up some stuff, lining up some leads, some potential customers, and then following them through all the way to completion or not to completion, wherever it might be. So I would catch up with her.
Totally.
Yep.
Yeah. She's been insightful on other stuff about high rise and using high rise. So yeah, I will. Yeah, I didn't realize they were close, but yeah, that's a good idea to catch up on that avenue. Should be some fresh insight on this.
So you want to share the screen?
Yeah. Cool. So this isn't going to be earth-shattering. Do you see it? I know.
Yep, now I do.
All right. I have to click your screen sharing. Present to everyone. Do I have to click that?
No, I'm seeing. Well, I'm seeing it. I don't know. I assume what I'm seeing is what everyone else is seeing. So I think you're good.
All right. So here's our demo account, and so here's the kind of the classic filtering system of Highrise right now. These sentences of you can click all deals we created or things that are still pending, things that have already happened. We've won them or lost them. Here's that single category thing I was talking about. This kind of thing doesn't lend itself to kind of like keep adding things onto it. So this is kind of where I had gotten stuck. And it was like, we're going to have to create so much more flexible of a system, which, stopped me in my tracks. Right. Then it was like, you know what? We could just do one single custom field. And so here, like, I'll choose a custom field, like, even though you might have expected close month and probability, I'll just choose expected close month and I'll choose whatever, February. And that's it. Yep. And I'm sure people want to do more than one custom field, but it was like, let's get this out the door. And it solves a big pain point. I even see us being able to let's just do, if we do need the added, extra oomph for this, I feel like we could add 2 custom fields and we'd probably solve 99% of the filtering people need of custom fields without going into this adding infinite number of options to this thing.
Yeah, I think this is a great example of just what we would call internally scope hammering, which is you have the idea. The idea is being able to filter by custom fields, right? And then you can go down this path. Well, what if you want to filter by multiple custom fields? Or the feature possibility is endless until you draw borders around the edges. And this is the thing with software, is that software doesn't have any edges. It can be anything and often becomes anything because there's nothing pushing back physically. And so it's very easy to take your idea, which is filter by custom fields, and go, well, we need to provide for every possible scenario of usage in this case. And that might ultimately be the case. But like you said, why don't we just ship it so you can do it once? Because you can't do it at all. So let's just let you do it with one. Then we can cut down, that might satisfy many people. Some people will not be satisfied. Then we can maybe add a second custom field 1, filter by custom field 1, filter by custom field 2, or filter by custom field, filter by one more custom field. Then maybe you're at 98% or 97%. Then maybe there's an idea that you add third, possibly, if you ever want to do that, right? But the idea of being able to add unlimited ones and build an interface that supports that and all the querying that you need to do, there's no good reason for it now. So let's see if anyone uses it at all.
Yep.
And then you can slowly introduce more incremental improvements if you need to. So, and then you could probably get that out in a couple of days versus all the stuff you need to do in another way. So yeah, that's I just had a chat with Claire about this morning. Claire was talking about this feature they want to add where you can, hopefully she won't care if I'm talking about this, where you can
anybody's watching this, it's press embargo.
yeah. You can basically acknowledge someone's answer and say, oh, I agree with that. Right now, in Know Your Company, you can't really do that. So this is a feature. And then she said, well, we have 3 types of questions. And then in some cases, it's not an agree. It's maybe it's I disagree, or it's maybe oh, I like that. There's all these different responses. And that's all true. But right now, they can't do anything, any sort of acknowledgement whatsoever. So give them one way to acknowledge.
Yeah.
Give them one way to acknowledge on a very specific kind of question, which is the company question, which is the question that happens on Wednesday. Start there. Then you reduce the whole scope and the surface area of the feature into something that's very small and very manageable, something you can launch within a week or so, or 2, or whatever it is. And then you can see how it's received, and then you can add it to other things. But if you just think about, I want to give people a way to acknowledge answers, then you naturally go to the problem set's much larger because there's lots of different answers in the product, and acknowledgments is a very broad idea. But if you just scope it down to it's not about acknowledging, it's about saying, I agree, and it's only about these kinds of questions, then it becomes a very small, tight scope, something you can really build and build quickly and see how it goes.
Yeah.
So this happens all the time. I mean,
yeah,
great pattern.
One of the things we've talked about this. Yeah, we've talked about this on the show before, but I think it's always worth repeating because it's something that we keep living by. Is like, I've called them here internally as like train schedules, and you guys have talked about this now of like these releases you guys are doing. I think it's like 8-week cycles you guys are doing.
Yes, 6 weeks.
6 weeks, and it's like it's so important, and it's like. I've also now been talking little bit about, I've been calling it like time diversification, or maybe there's a better way of saying it, but it's like, there's already in our company, there's already long-term projects. Like, most of the engineering team right now is working on mobile apps, and mobile apps are a beast. Like, we're working on an Android app and an iOS app right now simultaneously. It's taking months, and that's not going to surprise anybody how hard a mobile app is. But we can't let, by giving ourselves this concept of like, we want 3 things to announce every 3 weeks, it forces us to think like, well, the rest of the team's working on some really long-term things. We need to, it helps us time box. It helps us like focus on like scoping down features like this. It's like, and it's easier to do then, because like when I look at a problem and it's just like, well, like I need to get some fast things done while the team is getting some huge things done. It helps get me in the mindset of like thinking about deal filters like this. I feel like if we didn't have this, I think we'd all be tempted to be like, we wouldn't be thinking about that. We'd all just be like, oh my God, long-term project, no problem. There are, like you said, like there are no boundaries. And so by giving us like this like time diversification, by thinking like, well, some shit's gonna have to go a long time. Well, then the rest of the stuff's gotta like fit in some really tight boundaries then. Helps us a lot.
Yeah, what we do is we, maybe we can talk about this in another call since we have a few minutes, but we mostly try and stay in sync as far as these 6-week cycles. But we have a few teams in the company and a few projects that are running in the company that are longer term sort of research and development style things. But even our iOS and Android teams work on the same set of cycles. But what we don't do is we've decided that parity is not important. It's important, but not the primary goal. In that iOS app, Android app, desktop app, web app can all do slightly different things as long as they do mostly the same thing. And that allows each team to slide independently from each other and not lock anybody up. What we've tried to do at our company is remove as many dependencies as possible. Dependencies are like when one team or one group or one person's waiting on someone else. We want that to be as close to 0% of the time as possible. Sure. And so like the iOS, so for example, all this new stuff we're launching next week, it's only going to launch initially on the desktop app. And the iOS and Android tweaks are going to come a week or 2 later. Now we could hold up the launch on the desktop and make sure we launch everything together, but I just don't think it's worth it. I just don't like if you think about the long stretch, the long term, the long game, like if one thing launches a week after something else, it doesn't matter. Holding things up matters because it locks the company in place and you end up waiting and it slows things down. I'd much rather aim for shipping things when they're ready. And if the other platforms are a week behind or a week ahead or whatever it is, then they'll catch up or we'll catch up. It'll be fine in the long term. So it's kind of similar to what you're talking about. Of course, you guys don't have an Android app at all, right? Today.
No. Yeah, exactly.
So that's different. Like to actually boot it up is a whole different longer term project for sure.
Yeah. I mean, the goal is to get to updating those things on a more regular basis. But yeah, the initial boot up of these things is kind of a beast.
That's a beast. Yeah. That's beastie for sure.
Yeah, and yeah, but it's gonna be good. We found some interesting thing that I think we're gonna be able to talk about more. We're doing this a little bit differently than you guys, and I think a lot of other people. We're actually using. I'm not gonna spill it all. I don't think we've talked about it publicly yet, but we're using a technology that's out there. It's not like it's brand new or anything, but it's allowing us to actually work on these apps simultaneously, and they're super fast. And I don't see it that popular exactly yet, so that might be kind of interesting to talk about. Cool. Although I'm not the best one to talk about this form of development yet, but
is this so you guys can develop faster, basically?
Yeah,
you reuse a lot of the views or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so that should be good. It's allowing us to do a lot more with as small of a team as we have. So
we're the same way. I don't know what tech you guys are using. It doesn't even matter
No.
what you're using or what we're using, but we're basically, the way we work is we make sure that every view on the desktop app is optimized for mobile at the very least. So the iOS app and the Android teams, iOS team and Android teams, automatically get whatever exists on the desktop. Then they can decide to level up the native implementation if they choose, and at whatever time they want. So at the very least, there's a web view that's in the mobile apps that looks fine, works fine, a little clunky, a little slow sometimes depending on the screen, right? But then the teams have the freedom to decide what's worth nativizing, essentially.
Yeah.
Now, what that means is that they're hybrid apps, and that the high touch point stuff should be really fast. The other stuff should be possible, but it allows us to move very quickly with relatively small teams as well. Our Android team is 3 people, our iOS team is 3 people, and the web team is more than that, a few different teams of 3. But we're able to do a whole lot of stuff and make a lot of progress independently of one another for that reason. No one's waiting on each other. So it's a strategic decision that I think makes a lot of sense. But
yeah.
Anyway, looks like we're out of time.
Yep, cool, dude.
All right, catch up next week.
Next Wednesday work again, or what does it?
Let me double check. Next Wednesday works for me, yes.
All right, Wednesday at 3 p.m.
I will talk to you then, my friend.
Good luck on the launch. When are you doing this? What day?
We hope to be doing it sometime next week. Depends, but sometime next week we hope.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Good
Cool.
luck. Everybody look for this. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out this Basecamp launch. It's coming next week.
Cool. Adios.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.